Greetings, everyone. Steve, Paracords of Kindness. How are you doing today? Hopefully your weaving's been happy. Okay, first off, I apologize to the people. I told you I'd probably have this video uploaded by today already. I apologize. I had some technical difficulties. But with that said, what I got for you today is I'm going to show you how to make what I have come to call the Megalodon, or aka the Trilobite Jaw Bone, which I got my inspiration from a Trilobite Jaw Bone. But this has 2 extra core strands, therefore we can add a extra accent piece, as you can see. Here's one that's done black bracelet, and the 2 accent cords is vampire and black. But this one is basically red, and the 2 accents are white and blue. All right. Everybody see the thickness of this one. But if you want to know how to do it, and you want all the tips and tricks and extra commentary that I always give in my videos, stick around, because I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, folks, I'm back. I got my jig set up, ready to go. But before I start, let me say a few things, if you don't mind. Like I said in the beginning of many of my videos, I am not a filmmaker. Therefore, I apologize in advance for the bad lighting, camera getting out of focus, me not staying in frame, and I have poor sound quality, poor video quality, all that stuff. I'm not a filmmaker. I know how to make paracord bracelets. That's what I do, not make films. So, with that said, I apologize in advance. Okay, next. Skeleton modified. This one's done in the 2-tone. Tutorial for this, and also for this advanced mated Solomon. Will both be in the cards. Okay. Also, I'll put in the cards how I do a 6-strand core. But no matter, I'll put in the description section the link to my core strand setup playlist. It's got the various core strand setups, right? Okay, let's see. What's next? I'll start here. I'm gonna call this one the Megalodon, or Trilobite Jaw Bone, right? It's if you've done a regular shark jawbone or a piranha, they're the same thing. It's not the same. But if you've done a Trilobite Jawbone, same principle. If you've never done that, or you've never seen one of those, I'll put the link for a tutorial in the description. I would suggest going and doing that first, so you can understand the mechanics of how you're going to weave it. That way it'll make this a little bit easier. Because this one can be confusing. It's the same principle. I'll show you. This is a basic Trilobite Jawbone. You know, you've got your green first cord, primary cord, to make the bracelet, and then you have a accent cord, which is this. It's actually fern green and swamp thing is the colors, and this tan looking color. This has a chevron pattern or a V pattern in the middle. That's your accent color. It's a 4-strand cord. The one we're doing is a 6-strand cord. And those extra 2 core strands allows you to add in a second accent piece. Right? Let's get a better look at this. I know it's not in focus and the lighting's bad. Like I say, I apologize. But you get the general idea. I'll leave the description or the link for the tutorial for this. Not my channel, so it's somebody else's, in the description below. Okay, but what we're going to do today is it's the same principle, but we're adding cord strands, and we're going to add a second accent piece. Now, I know if we look, the edge, the bracelet, that's black. That would be the red. Okay? Then you have this first accent piece, which is like this red and black running down either side. That's your first accent piece. And on this bracelet, the second accent piece is also black, but it is a complete different and separate cord from the black of the actual bracelet. Does that make sense? So you've got two accent pieces running down. And you see how they're all, the ones on this side are at an angle, and the ones on this side are at an angle, forming like a V or a chevron pattern. This is what we're going for. But in today's video, I'm using 3 different colors to hopefully alleviate some of the confusion, because weaving this kind of does get confusing, especially me trying to show you what I'm doing on camera. Now, I can do it, but to be able to show you and explain what I'm doing, that's where I'm going to struggle, trying to explain this. Okay? So, let's see. I'll give you the specifications. I'm using a 20 millimeter or 3/4 inch black silicone coated tactical buckle. I get these from Paracord EU. We have, like I said, a 6-strand core. If you're unfamiliar, watch the video. But if you're familiar, I'll go ahead and tell you. The way I do it different than other people. I start with a cow hitch down here at the bottom. I run up, I go through the top of the top buckle. I go down, and I go through the top of the bottom buckle and come back up the last time. And there's 2 little side knots. If you've seen any of my core strand videos or whatever, you know, these little side knots, the way I do, I lock it in place, right? Put it on the jig, get it all set up, lock it in place, and then I stretch it to get it tight. Okay, there's that. I'm making this for a 7 3/4 inch wrist. The add to that I use is 1 3/4 inches because of the thickness. If you're not familiar with the way I'm using that term, basically we all know that, let's just say, like for example, this one, 7 3/4 inch wrist. You cannot measure your jig out at 7 3/4 inch. You have to add to that 7 3/4 to get a measurement there because of the thickness of the bracelet in order for the bracelet to actually fit the wrist. That difference between the 7 3/4 and what you add to it, that's what it is. And in my case, in the way I weave, and the style I weave, and how tight I pull it, and all that kind of stuff, for me, it's 1 3/4 inches. Now, it may be more, it may be less, depending on your weaving style. But for me, it's 1 3/4 inches. And I like my bracelets, now this one's a little loose, but I like mine to be able to get just the tip of my finger. See, I can get a little bit more of my finger under there, and that's a little too loose for me. But, I usually try to get just the tip of my finger under there. Right? I don't want it so tight that it's going to leave marks, but I don't want it so loose that it's going to flop. This one's a little too loose for my preference. Some people may like it that way. I don't. But in general, I make my bracelet on the loose side as opposed to the snug side. I don't like it leaving marks on my arm. Okay, now, with that said, let's see. What's next? The first cord, or the primary cord, I'm using 13 feet. My 2 secondary cords. This is, what do we got? Imperial Red, white, and this is ultramarine blue. Both the secondary cords are 6 feet. And I got the halfway point right here. And all I've done here, I'll zoom in and I'll show you this. Before I do this, let me show you something else. I think this will help alleviate some of the confusion when me trying to show and then explain what I'm doing. First off, this is a 6-strand cord. You can see it a little bit better down here because the cords are separated. But up here at the top, the nature of the way I do a 6-strand cord, when these 2 cords right here go up and they go through this buckle, you've actually got 4 strands right here. You got 2 laying on top of the other 2. So it's kind of hard to say. We all know the top of the bracelet is kind of, everything's, you know, bunched together. But once you start weaving, it separates out. And, you know, no better way to demonstrate that than to see It looks like two core strands, when in fact it's actually 4. They're just layered on top of each other. But once you start weaving, they will separate out. Okay? Okay, let me say this. Let me define terms up front. Maybe this will help also alleviate some confusion. Get my handy dandy laser paracord pointer out. I know in some of these videos, you'll have people, they'll label their core strands, strand 1, strand 2, strand 3, strand 4, strand 5, strand 6. And they'll also label the slots between them. Slot A, slot B, C, D, and E, right? Makes sense. Nothing wrong with that method. I'm not going to use that. I'm simply going to say, this lane, and we're going to change lane. Oops, sorry. From this slot or this lane, and we're going to change lanes. Make sense? We're going to change lanes across the top, and we're going to change lanes across the bottom. Does that make sense? We're just changing lanes. We're changing slots. Hopefully when I say that, that'll make sense as I'm trying to explain this. Because, like I said, we're going to end up having 6 cords we're working with, and it can be confusing. And it's going to be hard to see on camera because you're going to have so much going on in this small space. Like I said, I can do this thing, but for me to show somebody and then explain what I'm doing, probably not the easiest thing, especially on my part. Okay, now, with all that said, I'll show you. We'll get to the weaving part. Let me throw this out there. I probably should have said this at the beginning of the video, but I'll say it now. The intent of my YouTube channel is not simply to show over here, under here, and pull tight. There's 1,000 videos, or there's hundreds of videos, or let me back up. There's 1,000 videos and 100 channels that tell you that information. What I like to do on this channel is give you tips and tricks, more so than some of the other channels do, that I have learned through experience, through my struggles of trying to learn how to do this. I try to pass on what I've learned. That way you don't struggle the same way I have. You learn through my struggles, if that makes sense. Hence why my videos are longer than a lot of videos out there, and I talk a lot. I try to explain fully, more thoroughly, what I'm doing. So, you pick up things as you listen, and you start using them in your weaves, and hopefully you create a better product, better bracelet. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, with all that said, we'll get to weaving. Like I said, we got 2 core strands. Simply, all you see here, you find the center point of your 2 core string, or your 2 accent colors, I should say, and you go under this, under 1, over the 4 in the middle, and under 1. So you go under, over 4, and under. That's all there is to that, at the center point. Now I'm going to slide these up into place. I'll get them up in between these 2 little knots I've created. I'll kind of hold them somewhat. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I still have the center of those. So I'm going to run the ends out. Many of you know what I'm doing. Yeah, close enough. Okay. Okay, let's see. Where do we begin? First off, we're going to get this up out of the way. I'm trying to get this out of the way. Ignore those for now. We'll start off like a basic trilobite, right? If you don't know how to do it, if you've never done a trilobite, I would suggest starting there, then going to the Trilobite Jaw Bone, and then coming to this, right? You start out on the basic baby steps, and you work your way up. You start out with something easier, and you go to something a little bit more difficult, correct? Now, this one's not difficult. Don't be intimidated. This one's not difficult. It's just confusing because you got 6 cords, and you got to be very mindful of your overs and unders. Or you know, if you don't get your overs and unders, you won't end up at Grandma's house. We all know the song. Over the river and through the woods to Grandma's house we go. Right? If you don't get your overs and unders, you won't end up at Grandma's house. And that's where we want to go because she's got all the goodies. Okay, that's my joke. We're gonna start off like a basic trilobite. We're gonna start with this right one, or the one on the left. I'm sorry, the one on the left. All you're gonna do is you're gonna go over 1, under 4, and over 1. Does that make sense? We're going to go through this lane. The two outer lanes, we're going to go over here, where my thumb is, and then you're going to go under here, and you're going to go over here where my other thumb is. You see that? I'm going to pull the slack through. Okay, now on this one, we're going to do the same thing, but in the opposite. We're going to go opposite. Instead of over, under, over, we're going to go under, over, under. Make sense? But we're going to create the X in the middle. If you've made a trilobite, you're familiar with this. But if you've never made a trilobite, that's why I'm kind of breaking this down. Well, this one, we're going to go underneath, right here, underneath, and then we're going to come over the top of these 4. And then we're going to go underneath this one over here. All right? See how it's created an X right here in the middle. Here, let me pull the slack out. I'm going to pull the slack out. See? We're forming the X. One's going on the back side, under, and the other one's coming over. What I'm saying, you got this one right here. It's going over, under, and over. And the other one's just the opposite. It's going under, over, under. And you create that X. Always create that X. Right? That's the first step in the trilobite. Now we're going to cinch that up. And that right there is going to kind of hold them accent colors in there. Kind of push it up. It's not going to want to stay. That's the nature of this weave. I'll go ahead and tell you. That's the nature of this weave. For anybody who watches any of my videos, you know, neat, clean, and tight. I like my things neat, clean, and tight. And I'm the kind of person that will pull that knot as tight as I can get it, if the knot allows for it. I know some knots will distort or capsize, and you can't. But the ones that you can, I will pull tight. And this one, it doesn't like to stay tight. You start waving, the top of it's not going to look good. It's not going to stay tight. So after I weave a couple, I'm going to go back and I'm going to start tightening everything up. And I've said this in some of the past videos. One of the most used tools in my tool belt. Simple pair of like jeweler's pliers. They're blunted on the end. They don't have a sharp point, so, you know, there's less likely you're going to stab your cord. They're conical shaped, and they have no teeth on the things, right? So when you grab a hold, if you do slip off, there's less likely you're going to snag your cord and cause a run in that cord because there's no teeth on it. But you can still get a hold of it, and you can put some force on it, right? And I'll use these often, and on this bracelet, I will use it to tighten up these individual sections of the knot, okay? Now, just keep that in mind. We'll come back to that. So, we've got that set up. There we go. There's our first thing. Now, what we're going to do. Let's see. The best way to do this. We're going to take these 2 strands on this side. Right here. We're going to start with this white one. See, it's coming from underneath. All we're going to do is come up. Let me say this. What we're doing is getting all 4 of our accent strands. we're going to bring them through the bracelet to the top. Right? Okay. So we're going to start over here with this white one. And we're going to just come up through this first slot. Through this first lane. This is the outer strand. The far right strand, the slot right there. We're just going to come up. Just bring it up and get it out of the way. Right? Okay, now the next one. The blue one. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to move over a slot. Now granted, like I say, up here at the top, they're overlapped. But down here at the bottom, you can see how they're kind of separated. So take out one that's, you see what I'm saying? And just separate them right here. First core strand, second core strand. First lane, second lane. We're going to come up through this second lane. Just get it out of the way. Okay, now we're going to go over to this side. Start on this outer edge. We're going to do the same thing, but on the mirror image side. We're going to take this white one and come up this far left core strand in this first lane. We're going to come up through this lane. You notice how I'm going up under this X that I've created. Right? Let's not get this. Let me try this again. Hang on. Get this blue one out of the way so I don't get it crossed. Coming up through this first lane. And just get it out of the way. Now, same thing. All you're going to do, that first outer strand and the next strand. And that slot right there, that lane right there, we're going to come up with that blue. Get it, pull the slack out and get it out of the way. There you go. Okay, now we're going to make us another X with this. Same thing we did before. Now say, it's underneath, right? So we're going to wrap around and we're going to come over. This side is always going to go over this outer strand, under the four middle ones, and over this other outer strand on the far side. Right? It's going over here. Okay, let me pull the slack out. It's going over this core strand, under these four, and over right here. Right? Now, this one on this side, we'll move this out of the way so you can see. See how it's coming over the top of this outer core strand. What we're going to do is wrap it around and go under. We'll come up through that slot. And we'll cross over the top. So we're going under here, over these four core strands, making the X, remember. And then we're going to go under this one, under this core strand. Right? Under right here, over the four in the middle, making the X, and under this one. And we're going to pull out the slack. Now, we see this. Over, under, over. And up here is under, over, and under. And we're making the X. We can't tell that. Okay, now. That's the easy part. Now this is where it starts getting difficult. This is where we start changing lanes, right? With all the accent chords. This is where the lane changes. That's how we get that V pattern or that chevron pattern going down through there. And it can be a little confusing. So I'm going to try to take this slow. Just pay attention and we'll get it. First off, we're going to give all this a loose cinch. We ain't trying to get none of this tight yet. We'll get it tight in a minute. We're just kind of getting everything in place. Kind of give it a loose cinch. Push it toward that top buckle. Push that up. Kind of give it a little cinch. Okay, like I said, the two blues are going to be the center. I'm trying to get this so you can see this a little bit better. Yeah. Here, let me back out just a little bit. Maybe this will help. Okay. We see how we got these accent colors in order. Okay, now here's the fun part. Okay, this first one. Remember, we come up through this first lane, just on the inside of this core strand. What we're going to do is we're going to cross over into this next lane. Now, it's the same lane. You're going to take this one down through the lane, crossing over this X of both these chords you've made. But you're also crossing over this next chord strand, and you're going down. So you're coming up through this lane and going down through this lane. But you're also crossing this X. Does that make sense? Now, just a point to notice. The same lane that you come up in the blue is the same lane you're going to go down with the white. Does that make sense? So everything's going to shift over one. On this side, these two strands are going to shift over one lane toward the center. Does that make sense? But when you do, you're going to go from the back side, you're going to change lanes again and come back up in the one we started in. So basically, you're just kind of wrapping around this core strand right here. Hopefully that makes sense. So, I'm going to take the end. I'll take the end. Maybe this will help explain it. See, we've come up through this lane right here, above these the X strands. Just come down. Right? That's the same lane, but we're changing lanes. Sorry for the camera movement. We're changing lanes. We're going to go to the next lane over, and we're going to go down. Right? I'm going to go ahead and pull this through so you can see what I just did. Mindful of the twist. Get the twist out of there. I started in this lane, but I changed to this lane. But I crossed over the top of the X. Does that make sense? Now we got to get that white back up to the top of the bracelet. See how they're all up here? We got to get it back up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to change lanes again on the back side. So we're just going underneath here, and we're going to come up right through here. Back in the lane we started with. It's like a driver doesn't know what he wants to do. Changing lanes. That's all it is. I'm going to pull that slack out and get it out of the way. We're done with that one. Now this next one, we're going to do the same thing. Let me get the end of the cord and I'll show you. You can see right up here. We're in this lane. That same lane, we follow it down. The same lane right here. But below the X, we're going to change lanes. Now we're going to actually go into the very center lane. This is the very center slot between, you got 3 core strands on one side and 3 on this side, right? So we're going to just change lanes and go down. I'm going to pull out that slack. Now, you kind of see how at least the white and the blue's got that angle to it, right? Like I showed. Right here. How it's got this angle. That's what we've just done. Right? Now, pay attention to this part. Okay. Now this white one, when we change lanes across the top, we went down through the bracelet and we changed back into the same lane. We're not going to do that with the blue. What we're actually going to do with the blue is we're going to change lanes again, but we're going to go that direction. From the center one, we're going to change lanes. We see that right here? Underneath that one core strand, and we're going to come up in this other lane. So this guy, he went from one lane, down through one lane, and now he's coming up in another lane. Boop, boop, boop. He's changed 2 lanes. We get that. Try not to let these red ones confuse you, because they will get confused. This has got to go up there. Okay. Now, we're going to do the same thing again, but we're going to do it with this blue one right here. I'm going to get the end of the cord. Hopefully you can see this. End of the blue cord. You see it's coming up through this lane. And we'll just follow that lane down to right here. But what we're going to do is we're going to change lanes to the very center. And we're going to go down below this blue that we've already done. Right. So in fact, what you have, and then he's going to change the lanes again. So he's going under right here, and he's going to come up to here. Make sense? So basically, this white cord is always going to stay on this side of the bracelet. But these 2 blues, when they change lanes, they're going to change alternate sides. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Now that we got this blue here, this crossed over, we're going to take this blue and get it out of the way. And now we got one more to do with this white one. Same thing we did. If we look, we'll find the end of my cord. See, it's coming up. It's coming up in this lane. Follow that lane down, past the red X, the 2 that make the red X. And we're going to change lanes toward the center and go down. And pull out that slack. Make sense? Now, on the back side of the bracelet, back here, we're going to change lanes again toward the outside of the bracelet. See? We're changing lanes. We're going up under that core strand. And then we'll come up through here. Pull out the slack. We'll get it up out of the way. And there you go. Now you got to repeat that process. And you got to keep it in order. Now, we got to get all this tight. And that's where it can be kind of difficult. Tightening it up. Getting all that in a certain order. And then tightening it all up. First thing we're going to do is kind of push everything up. And we're just going to kind of snug it up, hand tight. Now, when I do all them lane changes and go through and lane change and come back out, I start on this side and work my way over. Now, to tighten everything up, I'm going to, over here, because the one I just did, I'm going to tighten up this way and work my way back. So there's kind of a flow to it, a rhythm to it. Makes sense? That's just the way I do it, to kind of keep in step, in mind, where I'm at. So we're going to take this white one. Don't pull it real tight as of right now. We'll come back to all that. This one is going to tighten up. I'm going to pull this blue in, and it's going to tighten up this side. Because remember, these two blues crossed. You'll notice. Right? You can always hold these core strands. Hold them in place. When you go to pull, you can hold this. Or a technique I mentioned in my last video that I do often. I'll take my fingers like this. And I'll put them on this bracelet. And I'll push them downward toward the surface. And I'm holding back as I'm pulling toward the camera. That makes sense? And then I'll do this last one that way. And I'll tighten up there. Right? Now be mindful when you do this first section, because if you pull one of these too tight, it's going to pull and get the center off, and it's going to, because this is all one long cord. If you pull it too tight, it's going to pull up. It does happen, right? So now we got all that, got everything loose. No, it's not tight like we want it, like I want it yet, but we got it. It's tight enough that it's going to stay in place. It still ain't loose. Now, this is what I'm going to do. Because this is a tricky one. I'm going to take a look. I'm going to look at the back of this thing to make sure it looks right. Yeah, everything looks in place. It's not tight, but everything's in place. So now what do? We start over. That was one complete repetition, one weave. Now we're just going to keep repeating that. But after we do like 2 or 3 of them, I'm going to come back with them pliers and I'm going to start tightening it up. Once I get it tight and everything, it's going to look right. Because right now, it's all messy, jumbled. It's not neat. Right? Neat, clean, and tight. That's the way I want it. So, we're going to start here. I'm going to move these out of the way so you can see. Notice, this red is coming from underneath. It's under this outer core strand. So we're going to wrap around so we can go over this one, and then we're going to go under these 4 in the middle. See how they're starting to separate now, right? We're going to go under all 4 of them, and we're going to go over this one. All right. Pull out the slack. It's going over here. It's going over, and it's going under these 4, and then it's going over here. All right? Now, this red one. Getting all these out of the way. See how it's coming up from, it's coming out at up this direction, toward the camera, the top. It's coming out the top side of the bracelet, this display side, I should say. So we're going to wrap it around and go underneath, over the top of these 4 core strands, creating this X, and then we're going to go back down through to go under here. Right? Does that make sense? Over, under the 4, and over. And then this one is just the opposite. It's going under, over the 4, and under. Creating the X. Okay, now, loosely cinch this up. Kind of push it up. Now, we're back to the confusing part. All the lane changes are happening. Okay. We're going to start, like I said, I'm going to start on this side. I'm going to work my way across. And then I'm going to tighten them and work my way back across. See, that's the rhythm of this. That's the way I do this, so I don't forget what step I'm on. Because there's a lot of little tiny steps in this, and you got to get them all in the right place. Okay, so I'm going to find the end of this white one. Okay. Get all this out of the way so hopefully you can see. If you look up there, you'll see that we're coming up through this lane right here. This most outer lane toward the far right. Right? We're going to change lanes and then go down through the next lane. I'm going to pull out that slack. All the while, we're crossing over this X. So we're going from this outer lane to that next lane over, crossing over the top of that X and going back toward the back of the bracelet, the non-display side of the bracelet. And once we get there, we're going to change lanes again and come back up through the bracelet. Right. So basically, this one core strand right here, if we look, we're going over the top, down through this lane, changing lanes and going under the core strand and coming back out the same lane we started in. Crazy driver, don't know what lane to stay in. But all the while you're crossing that X. Every time you move one of these things, you're going to cross over the top of those two strands. Or this one, actually it's just one, but the X is right there. You're going to cross over that X, right? And now we're going to take this, kind of just give it a little loose cinch, set it up out of the way. Now we're going to go to the blue. Same thing with the blue. I'm going to find this end. Now, notice it's in this lane. I've got it wide open right here, right? We're going to change lanes, go into the next lane. In this case, it happens to be the very center lane, right? We're going to cross over this red one, the top strand in that X. We'll go cross over it, and then we're going to go from the lane we were in to the next lane over. And we're going to go down. And we're going to just pull the slack out. Now you see how the white and the blue has got that angle to it. It's because they both start in one lane, and then they both change lanes. And that gives it that angle. Right? Now, we got to get it, just like we did with the white, we got to get it back to the display side, which is this side. The non-display side to display side. We got to get this blue back up to the display side and get it up out of the way in preparation for the next one. So what we're going to do is over here on the back side, you see how we went down through this one? We're going to change lanes. And we're going to come up through this one. So basically what you end up happening is all you're doing is going up under this one core strand. Does that make sense? Now leave this one down here for right this second, because we're going to bring this other blue one in there. Right? And they're going to cross just like they did here. They're going to cross again. So we're going to take this blue one right here. We'll find the end of it. And I'll show you. This is the lane it starts in, but it's right up here. It's coming out of this lane. Staying in the same lane, just go down below this red of that X piece and the blue we just did, right? So we're still in the same lane. We're going to change lanes toward the center. This one right here. We're just moving over a lane. And we're going to go down from the display side to the non-display side, and we're going to pull out our slack. Mindful of your twists in these cords. Right? Now, we'll find the end of this. And on the non-display side, I'm going to change lanes again. You see where I went down right here in this slot, in this lane. I'm going to change lanes going that direction. So I'm going to go from this lane to this lane. I'm going to come up. So in a sense, all you're doing is you're just going up under this core strand. Like I said, these two blues, they're alternating from one side of the bracelet to the other. Every time you do this right here, these lane changes, they're changing from one side of the bracelet to the other. Does that make sense? Now, Now that we've got that done, I'm going to move this out of the way, just so you can see. Now we're going to go to this last one, this white one. We'll find the end. All right. You see, this is it right here. You see the lane it's in. Follow the lane down past the two red cords that making that X. Go down here, staying in the same lane. Now we're going to change lanes toward the center of the bracelet to the next lane. And we're going to go down from the display side to the non-display side. And we're going to pull out our slack, or pull through our slack. Now, we see how there's a pattern starting to form. These two whites, they kind of have the angle. The two blues, same two in the next repetition. They all have this little V shape, this chevron shape. Okay? Now, with this red cord that's coming out right here, kind of get it out of the way for a second. Now, this white piece that we just did all those lane changes with, right? We went down. Oh, hang on. Let me try this again. Hopefully you can see all of what I'm doing here. You see it's going down through this lane. We're going to take the end, and we're going to change lanes toward the outside edge. And we're going to come up through this lane. And I'll show you. You'll see what I'm doing. All it's doing is crossing over the top of this core strand, going through the bracelet, and then going underneath the core strand and coming back up. In a sense, these two white strands, all they're doing is wrapping around the core strand. But it's crossing over that little red X every time. Right? We got all that? Now, let's take all these, kind of push them up. Take our reds, give them a little loose cinch, not too tight. Right? Now, we're going to start tightening this up. Starting on this side, right? We did all our lane changes from this way, going this direction. Now we're going to tighten them up going back. Like I said, the flow, the rhythm, the ebb and flow of this bracelet. We'll pull that. We'll pull this one, and it's going to tighten up this side. Now we're going to go to this one, and it's going to tighten up this one. And we're going to go to this white one. All right? We'll push everything up. Get all your accent colors back on they're coming out the display side, and move them up out of the way. Get them out of your way. Now we're going to go back to the red ones. Now I know it doesn't look straight, it's not neat, clean, or tight. I will come back to it. Once I get enough of it and I tighten it all up so it'll hold itself, I'll do it. I'm going to do one more of these repetitions. Okay. Now I'm going to do this one kind of quick because this video is getting long and I've explained this. Hopefully you can see that. But I'm going to do this. Just watch what I do. I'm not going to explain it so much. I'm going to just do it. Over, under 4, over 1. This one over here is going to go under 1, over the 4, creating the X, and under this last one. See? Creating the X. Kind of give it a loose cinch, push it up, kind of pull it. Hopefully it'll stay up there. Now, just to make it easy, I'm going to get these up out of my way. Okay. Now we're going to start on this side with this white one. We're in this lane. We come across these two strands that make this X. Come down below those two strands, staying in the same lane, but we're going to change lanes toward the center. One lane. We're going to go down. We're going to pull out that slack. And that's creating that angle. Now we're going to take that same strand, and we're going to change lanes again. We'll find the end of my cord. So this is the lane we're in. We're going to change lanes and go over 1. Pull out the slack. All we're doing is kind of wrapping around that core strand. Right? I'm going to put this up out of the way. We're going to go to this blue one. Find the end. We're in this lane. Now, yeah, these whites are here, but don't let them bother you. Go across these two reds, staying in the same lane, coming down here. We're going to change lane toward the center of the bracelet. In fact, it is the center lane. We're going to go down through that center lane. You're going to pull out your slide. Mindful of your twist. Now, on the back side, the non-display side, you're going to change lanes again that direction with the blue. All right? We change from this lane, across the X strands and that core strand, and we went down through this lane, and then on the back side, we're changing lanes again, causing this under and coming up through this slot. And we're going to keep this one down here for right now. Don't flip it up out of the way. Keep it down here for right now. And we're going to go to the blue one, the next blue one, which is our other center string. Now, see, it starts getting confusing because you got all these strands coming through this one in this one lane. But ignore them. All you're looking at is the one you're working with. Find the lane it's in and follow it down till you cross over that red and obviously this blue. And then you're going to change lanes toward the center, which is in fact the very center lane. And you're going to go down. See how the two blues are forming that chevron, that V. Okay, now on the non-display side back here, you're going to change lanes again. From the center, going that direction. One lane over, and you're going to come up. And all you're doing, what it equates to is you're going underneath that core strand. All right? Now that you've got these two blues done, we can get them out of the way. Come to the white. Same thing. Get all this out of the way so you can see. See where it's coming out. See which lane it's in. Go across the top of these two reds that make that X, staying in the same lane. Now we go toward the center of the bracelet and we change one lane. And then we go through. Taking out the majority of our slack. Mindful of the twist. There's a little twist right there. I'm going to get rid of that now. Right? Now on the back side, I find the end of my cord. We went down through this lane. So we're going, on the back side, we're going to change lanes toward the outside of the bracelet. Or this edge of the bracelet. And we're going to take out that slack. And all it's doing is wrapping around this core strand. Now we're going to get it up out of the way. We're going to push everything up. Our two reds. Just kind of give them a loose cinch. Now, like I said, we started with the lane changes over here on this white, the blue, and we worked our way across. Now we're going to tighten all these up, the accent pieces, back the other direction. We'll start here. We'll pull it. Pull this one. Pull this one. And then pull this one. Now, I'm going to move all these cords down so you can see. See how the pattern is starting to form? It's starting to look and make sense. It actually looks like a bracelet as opposed to just a bunch of jumbled chaos. Okay, now, I'm going to look at the back of this to make sure everything looks right on the back. So that's something I do often. Once you do one of these bracelets, look at the sides of it. Make sure the sides are pulled the same amount of tension so these little wraparounds, you don't have one sticking way out, one pulled too real tight. You want them consistent. Now, granted, this is the beginning of the bracelet, so it's going to widen out a little bit, but then it's going to level out and be straight. And you want it to be straight and consistent, neat, clean, and tight, right? Well, you do one of these enough, you can look at the back of it and you'll go, something's out of place. I didn't do something right just by the pattern on the back side, the non-display side. So I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to just look. Everything looks like it's in place. Okay, now, I'm going to tighten all this up using those pliers. Okay? I'm going to get all this tight. Now that it's all there, I'm going to get it all tight. And once I get it all tight, I'll do one more. And I'll show you how I do that. Okay? So what we're going to do here, we're just going to come up here. I probably shouldn't have waited until after 3 repetitions to do this, but I wanted you to see all those repetitions and how, yes, it's confusing as all get out, but there is a pattern to it. Right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to tighten up these accent pieces first. I'm going to grab this white one. Since it's not real tight, I should be able to get up under there. And grab, if I can get, really just don't want to go up under that. There we go. You see how I got up under it, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it right here and I'm going to roll it towards me, and that's going to take out the slack. But I'm going to hold this bracelet, like I said, I'm going to hold my fingers and I'm going to push as I pull. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to push down and hold back, and I'm going to pull. And that's going to tighten up this knot. And I'm going to do all this way. Alright? Okay, now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, now I got enough, because I'm right-handed. I am in by no means ambidextrous. And I can get my fingers on it, I'll just grab a hold of it. See how much slack is in that? Kind of push it up. Now you get a hold of it. If you get a hold of it just right, you can take it and you can roll it. And it will pull that slack out. Or you can roll it the other way, which is probably best. And it tightens up this knot. See how this white one's real tight and over here it's not real tight? We'll get it there. We just got to work with it. Okay, now, I got enough right here. I can just see how it pulls it. I can do this one by hand. Pushing everything up toward the buckle. See, now it's starting to look a little bit better. Now these blues, get up under them and do the same thing. Be very careful. You don't want to jam this thing through your cord. And all I'm doing is I'm rolling it and it's pulling it tight, but I'm holding that bracelet with my finger. I'm just kind of working that knot and pulling it. And it's tightening up this little blue right here at the top. Makes sense? I can take this. Now we're going to do the one on this side. We'll get up under it. Just working my way down both these blue cords. That's all I'm doing. Okay. Now we're going to push everything up. Pull in this one. Same thing over here. Pushing it up. Now, it's not that pretty, but it'll get there. Just, I promise you. Most of you have seen my work. It doesn't start off pretty. Thing is, all these reds on the side, they're all kind of loose. We're going to fix them too. Okay, now we're going to take out some of this slack. Alright, now, here's the fun part. Right here. I'm going to grab this first red one. And what I'm doing, it's coming out here and it's wrapping around the back side. So I'm going to pull this tight. Makes sense? And this same cord comes over here. Let's get this one. No, I won't get that one out, dude. See, now I got a big, all this loop. I've taken out all the looseness. I'm going to just move down one. I'm going to go to this one. When I tighten this one up, it's going to pull this slack out. See? Alright. Now we're going to go over here to this one. When I tighten this one up, it's going to pull the slack out. Am I doing this right? Am I getting the right one? Yeah, there it is. Okay, now there's our slack. Now I'm going to pull it over here. It's going to disappear and I'm going to pull this one. Alright. I'm going to pull this one out here and it's going to take out that. Alright. Now it's getting to look a little better. We're going to push it up again. See that top row's tight like I want it. It's getting there. I can feel the bite. I know it's hard to see, but these red cords, that first one's tight, the second one not so much, and this one obviously not at all. We eventually want to get all of them tight. I'm gonna do this one more time, right here. Alright. I'm going to get my fingers up under here and I'm going to push it all toward the buckle. So you get it all straight right here at the beginning. You know, you won't have to do this every time. You'll have to just do the weave and tighten it up. Do the weave and tighten it up. But it's not that hard once you get it all right and everything's sitting right and everything's laid out. See, all the core strands are separated. Everything looks right. Once you get it down to that far, it's easy. You don't have to go and individually tighten, but you just tighten it as you go. And it's a lot easier. Okay, so what we're going to do, push everything up. Now, we're going to tighten this up. Like I said, we're going to pull this up and I'm going to hold it back here. And you can push it up that way. pull it up this way. That will push everything toward the top buckle. Does that make sense? See how when I pulled it, it pushed everything up? Yes, that's what we're wanting. All right. So all the while it's starting to look better. Okay. Now you notice when I tightened up these accents, I started on this side and I worked my way across. Always do it that way. That's the way I do it anyway. Okay, now we'll get all this out of the way. Now I'm gonna just do this. I'm gonna do this quickly. Just watch. It's coming from underneath. We're gonna go over 1, under 4, and over 1. Now this one we'll wrap around the backside, so we're gonna go under 1, over 4, making the X right there in the middle, and we'll go under this last one. Right? Kind of pull out the slack, cinch it up a little bit, just a loose cinch to get these red cords up out of the way. And I'll even put them up here just to get them out of the way. Right now, we're going to start on this side, and we'll do all the lane changes across. Start with the white one. Right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you how I do this. See, all that explaining I did, and I just did it in like 2 seconds. Just kind of give it a loose cinch. Right? All that explaining on how to do all them lane changes. You saw I did it in 2 seconds. Okay, now we're going to do the X's again. Now, I'll do this in one motion also. Make sense? I just did 1 repetition. Okay, now we're going to tighten all this up. We're going to tighten up from this side. Pulling toward the camera, but kind of at an angle this way. Holding back with my fingers. And then go to the blue one. And I'm going to switch hands. Do the same technique, but with the other hands. And on the other ones. Alright. I'll push it up. Now, just so you can see, this one wraparound we just did, we're going to back up 1. This is where the pliers come in. I'm going to grab a hold of it and pull it. That's going to tighten it up over here on this side, where we left off tightening up. Now, we're going to come over here, because this one goes through. I'm going to grab it right here. Now you see where I've got it, and it's coming from underneath. I'm going to pull this, and it's going to pull this slack out. Just watch. Let's see how it did. You saw my hand move. That's all we're doing. All that stuff I did up here to get all this to get it neat. Now, it's simple once you get it all kind of set in place. Cinch that up. Now, we're going to do all our lanes. Get these out of the way. We're going to do our lane changes. Keeping this one down here because these blues cross themselves. Now get that up. Now get that up. And now come down with this white. Get it up out of the way. Get all these out of the way. Push them up. Loose cinch across the board. Loose cinch. Now, do the twisting motion. Do it all in one motion. Push it up. Pull it tight. Now, we cinch. We pull some pressure. Okay, and you can always go back and look, make sure everything's even. pushing it up when you need to get it even. See, this blue one right here is sticking up, so I'm going to pull this one a little bit. You see that? We'll get the reds out of the way. Now we're going to back up one to this red. Pull out that little bit of slack. And it's going to be this one right over here. I'm going to pull out. Watch this tighten up as I pull this red. See how it did? See how that slack? Now we just take it out. See, we work every time we do a repetition, we work out the slack. You reach back there. See if I can show you. See how these reds are going across? So that was loose. But the ones up here, they're tight. And that's the way we want it. But every time we do a repetition, we back up just like that and we pull out that little bit of slack. See, up here it's pretty tight. And that's the way we want it. Neat, clean, and tight. See, it looks neat, looks clean, looks tight. Now I'm going to do this one more time. I know this is a long one, but this is a complicated one. A lot of little tiny steps in this. Right? I'm going to do this one more time. Going over 1, under 4, over 1. Under 1, over 4, making the X, and under. Loose cinch, pushing everything toward the buckle, getting them out of your way, starting with the white. Come down, we change lanes, we go down, we change lanes on the back side, we pull out our slack and get it out of the way. With the blue one, we come down, we change lanes, go through the bracelet, we change lanes again on the back side, and we come up through. We'll leave it down here because we've got to get this blue in because they cross. Wait a minute, something's not right, something's not right. Okay, stop. I got one too many steps. Let's back up, back up, back up. Maybe some of you, if you've noticed it, great. See, I make mistakes too. Do this one more time here. Since I've already done that, I'm going to just slide that out of the way. I'm going to undo it. I forgot to do my lane changes. That's all right though. Okay, now we'll take our pliers. Pull out that slack. We'll come over here. We're going to take it out here. You see how that knot, it's got some give to it? Not so much. I got to get that out. I'm going to come over here to this one. Now I got to take it out back over here on this side. Now I'm back over here on this side. I'm just following it. I'm just taking that slack out, just following it down through the bracelet. Now, yeah, everything's tight. Yeah, everything's tight. push it up, push it up, push it up, push it up. Alright, get those reds out of the way. Alright, last time. Go down, change lanes on the back side and pull it through. Go down, change lanes, go through the bracelet, change lanes on the back side. Oop, whoop, wrong direction. Change lanes this way. The blues always change lanes twice the same direction. Leave it down there. Take this blue. Come down, change lanes, go through the bracelet, change lanes on the back side of the bracelet, and then come up. Get all these out of the way. White comes down, change lanes toward the center of the bracelet, goes through the bracelet, and change lanes on the back side of the bracelet, and you come back up. And you take all this, you get it out of the way. You bring your reds back. Push everything up, give it a loose cinch. Makes sense. And that's all there is to this. It's kind of be difficult in the beginning because nothing looks right. And you're like, why is it not working? Once you do a repetition or two, go through there and tighten each one up individually and get it to sit right and look right, neat, clean, and tight. And then once you do that, all you have to do is every time you weave one, pull them tight and pull this knot on this side. From the top, pull it, wrapping it around. And then you come over here to this side and you take out that slack. And then you do another repetition. And you just keep doing. That's all you got to do. But once I get done, I'll come back and I'll show you how to finish this one off. Because this one is notoriously tricky to cut and burn the end of it. Because of the way this thing looks on the back. You'll see, if you're doing this at home, flip it over and look at the back. You're going to see these big hollow holes that is created in the back of this bracelet. And it's notoriously tricky to try to cut and burn this thing. But when I get done, I'll come back and I'll show you. I'll show you how I tie everything up, how I cut and burn it. And hopefully I won't burn anything that's not meant to be burned, which is notorious on this bracelet. But anyway, with that, thanks for watching. I'll be back in a second. Okay, folks, I'm done. You see, it actually turns into a bracelet. Like I said, I'll throw this out there. This blue, ultramarine blue, this is a polyester cord. And this white is a nylon cord. And for those who've worked with both and you know the difference, you know that polyester is usually a little bit thicker and a little bit stiffer than nylon. So having those two cords next to each other kind of gave me a problem. The accent colors didn't want to tighten up every time. So I had to give it a little extra tender care, a little aggressive negotiations, if you will. I had to actually go by and tighten up these accent pieces individually. You know, I'd do a little bit, kind of like I did in the beginning, how I did a couple of weaves, and I had to back up and tighten everything up. Normally, I don't have to do all that. I can just do them by hand and go to the next and tighten up these the wraparounds and push everything up. I can usually do it all by hand. Well, not so much with this, just because of this. The nylon next to this polyester was causing me some problems. But you can see, it turned out pretty good. It's pretty straight. Everything looks pretty even, neat, clean, and tight. Now, like I said, the end of this one is notorious for not wanting to cut and burn correctly. Okay? Now, hopefully, I won't have enough room to do this. I'm not sure. But we're going to see. Now, I can't see this. My face is back here, so I'm looking down at this at a crazy angle. Normally, I have this thing tilted up so I can see it. You know, I have it tilted up like this so I can look at it. I can't do that. So, you know, cut me some slack here. I can't quite see what I'm doing. I might turn it sideways like this just so I can see it a little bit better. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all these away. Oh, I highly suggest, especially on this bracelet, this one right here is one you might want some fids. And, you know, me, I put a fid on every cord I have. That way I don't have to constantly change it or whatever, especially when I get to the end. Okay, so we'll get all your accents out of the way. We're going to do this one last, if I can fit it in there, I think there's enough room to fit in one more of these, the Trilobite X type mark. So we're going to go through here, and we're going to come up. I'm doing the same thing I did up there. I'm just doing it with my fid. Just kind of working everything into place. Okay, now this one's going to need to go around the back. Right here. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, I did something wrong. Okay, I see what I did wrong. This one right here's going in the wrong. It didn't. I got my overs and unders wrong. I'm not ended up at grandma's house like that. Come on now, I want my goodies. Right there. There we go. That's where that was supposed to go. Is that right? Over? No, I still did it wrong. I'm still, see, it's because of the end of this bracelet. And I get this back up through where it's supposed to go, right there. Okay. Goes over there, under there, and it's supposed to go under all these. Okay. Under all these. And then over that one. Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want right there. Now this one goes under there, over here. And under right there. That's what we want. Now, I'm keeping this on the jig. Here, let me zoom in. Maybe, I know you can't see what I'm doing very well. But all I just did right there was create that one last little X with this. Okay, now, all these, what we're going to do, instead of going, we're going to do our lane changes, but we're going to go through the bracelet, and we're going to stay on the back side, on the non-display side. Makes sense? We're not going to try to come back up here to this side. Why? Because we want everything on the back side so we can do a cut and burn. Right? So hopefully I can get all this to go in there. See? It's coming up here. We're going to go down through here. We're going to cross over that one core strand right there. Like I say, it's a tight fit down here at the end of the bracelet. But just stay in the same thing you've been doing. You know, just because it's a tight fit down here, nothing's changing. It's just I'm going to cross over this one. Now, this one that's running on the back, I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I do this. Hopefully, I can get this to go through here. Because this right here is going to be the tightest spot, I think. Yeah, right there. Alright, we'll take this other one. We're going to go to the same spot. Woo, that's a tight one. Here, I'm going to take, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this blue one that I just ran through here, and I'm going to pull it that direction. And hopefully it's going to create a little bit of a gap, a hole that I can get that fid started through right there. I can't quite see. Normally I would have this thing. Let me see. Let me make sure I'm not jamming it through anything back here. Okay, I got it. Now I just gotta get it through there. Alright. Now I got one more, this white one right here. We should be able to get that one through. Right there. Alright. Now we're going to kind of pull everything tight. That way it keeps with the consistency of the bracelet. Okay, now, what we got to do here, this red one right here is already on the back side of the bracelet. This one is coming out, so we want to wrap it around. We're going to back weave it into the back side of the bracelet. And I'm going to take this off the jig and you'll see. Now, like I say on here, let me back out. I want everybody to see this. This one's not as tight. I didn't pull my jig as tight as I normally would because I knew I was going to need slack to separate them cords to show you all the lane changes. But normally I would tighten this thing up. And when I pop it, when I loosen this buckle, sometimes I can't even get the buckle to come undone. I have to loosen my carriage piece up and give it some slack to take the buckle off. Let's just say, for entertainment purposes only, if you can hear the tension release when I release this buckle. You saw how much there that moved? Yeah. Okay, we're going to get our jig out of the way. Now, okay, here's a little tip I've learned from experience. Before I flip this display side upside down onto my work surface, I try to get the dust and dirt off. I try to keep this relatively clean anyway. But this is the top of my desk, and my computer screens and my keyboard sits up here, you know. So this is my desk. So it does get dusty and dirty and stuff. But I try to keep it relatively clean. But before I lay a bracelet down, especially one with white, like that, I try to get all the dust off. Now, here's the jumbled octopus mess. This one's already on, like I said, this one's already on the back side here. I'll zoom in. But this one's already on the back side, which is where we want it. It's not exactly in the exact place we want it, but at least it's on the back. This one, we're going to have to get it on the back. So what we're going to do, these are already where we want them. Okay? Now if we look, where's my handy dandy laser paracord pointer? We see this last cord, red cord running across here. It's actually this cord right here. Alright? However, when you end this thing, sometimes all these accents will be on this side of that cord right there. So I'll tuck them up under like that, and I'll get them to where they are now. This is where I want them. I seen it, and when I was weaving, and I made sure that they ended here. Okay, so what we're going to do here is first off, this one. Same principle that I do how to cut and burn a cover and hide the ends. Same principle. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to tuck it up under here. Is that going to work? Yes. Yeah. We'll tuck it up under here. What I'm doing is getting all my cords into one spot. So there's going to be one big cut and burn. Right? So we got that under there. Now we're going to take this one. See? That's the same cord. All I'm going to do is take this and feed it up under itself. And I'm going to take this in right here and pull out that slack. And I'm going to take it out right there. Okay, now, like I always say, learn this from experience. Oh, let me say this. If you look, this is what I was talking about, all the holes in this thing. In between these red pieces, there's a gap, obviously, but there's a hole right there. It's just like a trench running down through there, and these little red pieces kind of cross over it. So when we do our cut and burns, because it sits down inside there, we don't want to do our cut and burn on when we cut this, all this, and we go to burn it, we don't want to burn it because the middle of this bracelet is sunken in. Does that make sense? If you make one of these, you'll see what I'm saying. It's kind of hard to see on the camera, but in between these red pieces, there's a hole right there. There's a gap up under them red pieces. It's just the nature of the way this thing's woven together. But you see how even on the back side, it's neat, clean, and tight. Even the back looks all even. That's why I say, when you're doing it, every now and then flip it over and look at the back of it. And if something looks out of place, you'll go, something's not right. Flip it over and you'll go, oh, maybe it's right there. There's where it's out of place, and you'll familiarize. I had somebody tell me to get intimate with the knot. Once you know the knot intimately, you know how it works, where you need to pull here to tighten this side up or whatever. Does that make sense? Okay. But anyway, we're going to tighten all this. What I was getting at is all these, learn from experience. What I've learned from experience. Anytime you do this is before you cut these things, look at the front. Oh, bam, I can see right there. This white. See how it's all loose? Same thing over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pull this white. I'm going to take out that slack. Same thing with this other white one. I'm going to pull that slack out. Make sure everything's tight. Take out all your slack. And like that piece right there, we're going to get our pliers on that one where they're at, right here. See, I'm pulling it here and it's tightening up this piece. I'm pulling right here where the pliers are and it's tightening this up. I'm doing that technique of rolling my pliers. Pinching it and then rolling it. Now you see all this slack I've created right here? I'm going to take it out by pulling it. Bam. Now we're going to look again at the front. See that white's loose again. Like I've said before, take your hand and put pressure, pushing it down toward the table. And pull out all that slack. And do all this before you cut anything. And then when you cut it, don't mess with it. Don't touch it. Don't manhandle it. Because what will happen is your cords will kind of want to draw back up in there. And you won't be able to, you'll be messed up after that. And that one just don't want to be tight. We'll get it though. Here, let's do it this way. Okay. Like I said, the nature of the way this thing's done, we're gonna cut all these. But it's gonna be hard to burn all this without burning this edge over here or this edge over here. I'm telling you, I'm gonna do it. I know I always do on this bracelet, but I don't do it bad. But I'm gonna try not to. So we're gonna take our scissors, we're gonna get our smoothing tool out. We back out just a little bit. Give me a drink of water in preparation for this. I've been using this leather stamp real hard on it. Paracords of Kindness. If my burn mark is big enough, I'll use that. Okay. Smoothing tool. Where's it at? Smoothing tool at the ready. I'm going to take these and I'm going to cut all these at once. Yeah, I'm going to be easy with it. I'm going to try to burn all these right there where they are. Try to not get up on these little side wraparounds, which is notorious. Let's see. Maybe I can do it this way. I've said this before in some of my videos. Sometimes you can bend that buckle back and it'll remove this, and you can come up this way with the heat. Let me see if I can't try it that way. Maybe that'll work better than the method I've been doing. I've been trying to come at it from a side right here, and I always get up on this. Or coming this way, and I always get up on it. Maybe if I do it like that, it'll work. Let's see. I think it's still going to be done because it's so close to it. But we'll try. We're going to try. Smoothing tool at the ready. Got this at the ready. We're going to try this. We'll try to come heat going up. Yeah, see, I got on it. I always get on this bracelet. This is one I'm not perfect, guys. I'm really not. If you look, you can see right there where I burned through that red. But not bad. But while it's still hot, sure that's not a here. There we go. Now it's smooth now. Okay, there we go. That's it. You know, like I say, this one is notorious. The cut and burn is notorious. It's hard because of the way they sit. Once you make this, you'll see what I'm talking about. How they sit down in this little trench right there, and it's hard to get that one right. For me, anyway. But that's it. Now, normally, here, let's back it out. I'll let you see it. I know it's not straight before I take a picture of it and all that. I'll get it lined up. That's what I try to tell people. Lay it out there and line it up. Right there, don't want to sit right. Yeah, there we go. Make sure buckles are straight and all that good stuff. Right, there we go. Now, normally I'd be making one of these bracelets for me, and I would test it out. I'd real time right there. Let's make sure I sized it right, because hey, like I said, I ain't perfect, but I'll get them. I'll test it right there. I'll put it on my arm. Well, this one's not for me, so I can't test it out. But I do have this handy-dandy sizing manual. 6-inch mark, 7-inch mark, 8-inch mark, 9-inch mark. We said we're doing this for a 7 3/4 inch. So we want it to fall right in here. And I make mine just a little loose. Like I said, this one's a little too loose for me, but I make them a little on the loose side. So let's see what we got here. That looks like 7 3/4 inch fit to me. What do you think? But there you go. A Megalodon, also known as a Trilobite double jawbone. Bam. Appreciate you watching. Click, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. But leave me a comment below. What do you think? But with all that said, I'll end this one like I end them all. Keep it neat, keep it clean, and keep it tight. Happy weaving, folks.